Okay, it looks like I'm recording. Now what you're looking at is the walk cycle that I've been working on. You'll notice this tearing here in the video. And you might think that that is because of the fact that it's playing back in real time while I'm streaming video. No, that's not why that tearing is there. In fact, as you can see, that effect is actually baked into the video. Okay. Now that will become significant in a moment, because in Krita, after I did my coloring, I was pretty excited actually, because Krita has this concept called transform mask, which lets you take an entire animated layer and transform it, which is great because then you can take a component of your animation and resize it and position it properly in the composite. I also added a filter mask that allowed me to color correct him. So that's pretty cool. I put a background of a city street and added a second layer up here that has just the light pole, so he can walk behind the light pole. The problem is, once you add those, I don't know if it's the grouping. I think it probably is. It's the grouping and it's the translation layers. But what I want you to understand is everything you see going on the screen right now that looks a little weird, like entire sections of the character that like are missing sometimes in the frame, like right there. That is not a function of just playback. It will render that way. And I've tried a lot of different settings, OpenGL settings, different versions of Krita, blah, blah, blah. And having a martini, by the way. This has happened in this quest to come up with a really good animation workflow where I've landed pretty much on Blender and Krita. It often is the case that I will get really close to the point where a shot or a concept is finished, and right when you're ready to cross the finish line, you find out that your software is broken. And it really is, you know, you could blame it on using open source software. You know, Blender's an amazing program with incredible capabilities, but in the area that's of interest to me, which is 2D animation, it's still very immature. And version 2.8 may be awesome, but I already know that the laptop I'm using right now, I will not be able to use Blender 2.8. So there will be adjustments, maybe a laptop upgrade or whatever, if we're going to make that work. And having it work does depend a lot on the idea that Blender 2.8 will be very capable right out of the gate. But this has been really frustrating because I get close to the end of the process and then bump into limitations, and sometimes those limitations are just they're things that seem juvenile. It's like, you can't believe it's this broken. How did this get by the developers? You know, it is what it is. I've done enough programming to know. Excuse me. It's not easy. The upshot of all this is I got sufficiently frustrated that I decided I'm going to take another look at opentoonz. The reason I've stayed away from opentoonz, and I know the scene looks completely stupid, but there's a reason for that. I've stayed away from opentoonz because the thing that attracted me to it in the first place was the vector layers. The fact that I could do my inking in a vector mode, which is scalable. But what I've found is all the compromises that have led me to a certain workflow have caused me to accept things like not having vector-based outlines, for example. You kind of get that with the Blender grease pencil, but I've sort of resigned myself to, you know what, the whole anime industry tends to use bitmap art, and if, as long as you don't scale it up too much and only scale it down, you know, no big deal. So anyway, so I took another look and I realized that the toonz raster levels in opentoonz, which is a bitmap format, are actually very mature. It's the one part of creating art in opentoonz that does seem to be pretty mature. Filling actually works. With opentoonz vector layers, you can never depend on the fills to work. I could waste time now explaining why, but take my word for it. There are things about it like the snapping. The snapping's amazing until it's not. And then you zoom in and find out that when, you know, what do I mean by that? In other words, in opentoonz you can, well, I could just do it here. I draw a line. Okay, and now look, see that little green line right there? That means that this line is going to snap to the previous line. Well, that's super cool until it doesn't work. And what you find out is it doesn't work kind of often. And you wind up doing more fixing, trying to deal with the fact that the software isn't, you know, there's certain things that are obvious that you want the software to do. Like if you want it to, if it's going to snap, you expect it to snap and cause a connection between those two lines, which creates a closed shape, which is fillable. If the snap doesn't actually work, filling doesn't work. And that whole feature becomes useless. Well, that's the problem I'm having with Krita, is there are all these cool capabilities like the transform mask, but once you follow it through to create a scene, you find out it's actually not usable. It's broken. It doesn't work. It doesn't render properly. I mean, I've literally gone through and looked at the individual frames in this animation, and the tearing is in the individual frames. Now, yes, you're going to say, well, Dave, you could talk to the developers. You know, put a bug report. I agree. However, I'm not in a frame of mind right now to wait for the weeks or months it could take to address the issue. And, you know, everything's a workaround. You know, actually everything with the Blender grease pencil is a workaround. But it's really, what it does well, it does really well. And it's cool. Anyway, so this got me thinking. This got me pragmatic. I said, you know what? I'm going to take a new look at opentoonz. And what I realized is, if I limit myself to a subset of capabilities that fits kind of the workflow I've arrived at, it's pretty good. So I created this, what I did was I did this really stupid drawing. Let me just turn these other layers off. I just did this sketch. Oops, sorry folks. And I'm going to turn all those other layers off. So I do this stupid sketch just as a guide, and then I used a toonz raster layer, which is a bitmap format, to draw this guy. And then I drew his arm on a different level. And then I thought, well, I don't really want a keyframe. I'm gonna for a test, I'm gonna just have his arm swing, you know, just have his arm do this, whatever, right? Which you can see. Okay. But I thought, I don't really want to draw the arm. So it would really be nice if I could take pieces of my art and either translate them or deform them. Just to make it faster, you know? Well, it turns out that in toonz, that's not only doable, but it's actually pretty easy. You just use the plastic tool, and it magically creates a mesh. It'd be like in Blender, it'd be like taking your animation or your art, mapping it to a plane, you know, with UV mapping, and then just deform it, just, you know, distort it and animate that over time. You can do it in Blender, and it's fine, but it's a little time consuming. There's a lot of steps involved. Whereas in toonz with the plastic tool, it's actually kind of brain dead. Truthfully, it's really, really simple. You hit the X key, you create the mesh, you create the skeleton, which takes literally seconds, and then you just jump into animate mode and you animate it. It is what it is. Okay, so I'm like, all right, so all the animation, I only drew the guy once, and all the animation here was done with the plastic tool. Now for anime, that's probably not the solution most of the time. You usually probably want to have some keyframes. But my point is, this was really fast and easy, and it worked, which is really significant. Not only that, but I was able to take this whole set of layers, and in toonz you can collapse them down to a single layer. which keeps your workspace clean. You can like you could create a face where the eyes and the mouth and the things that are animated are maybe on different layers, but then collapse them all into one layer that represents the head, and you can nest those collapsed layers as many levels deep as you need to. Now, I've never pushed it. I've never gone 5 levels deep to see if Toonz starts breaking, because it very well might. But, you know, additionally, you can hit the A key in Toonz and just translate things around or rotate them or scale them. And it's all keyframed and animated over time. So you could do basic puppet animation without deformation very easily. You just have a lot of layers, but, you know, like I said, you collapse them. Then I drew this idiotic background of a tree or whatever you want to call it. And I just wanted to see what would happen if I just took this drawing and then just duplicate it, add another drawing, drag it in there, stretch it out. Just trying to see if I go in and do things behave as expected. And basically they do. In fact, not only that, if I go into this complex layer, and I think if I go to the palette view here, you'll see what I'm talking about. So now if I want to take, this is the cool thing about Toonz raster levels, is it works like the Blender grease pencil. If I go in to this layer and I want to make it match this other layer, so I say, well, okay, the shadow color, I want it to match this color. Let's see here. I think I need to go into here. So I'm still learning here a little bit, folks. And a little while ago when I was working with this, I had the screen resolution larger, so now I'm sort of having to drag things around. But what I'm trying to get at is, if I have this layer selected, I should be able to use the eyedropper to match this other color. And for some reason, I think because it's animated, if this was just the initial drawing and I was setting up my colors there, it would work. But now, unfortunately, right here with you watching, it doesn't work. What I should be able to do is just click the eyedropper on this shadow, and it because it's mesh deformed, I can't do it. Okay, so, but if it wasn't already animated, this would work. In principle, what you can do is go into this drawing, and if I go in and change the colors, all the colors will update, and it all propagates. So you can change your color scheme after the fact. And what I figured out a little bit ago is that if you do it at the level of the drawings, even if it's animated, you can go in and change your palette colors later. So it kind of works the way you can tell what I'm trying to do. You can do it. The worst, actually, this is probably how you should really do it in the scenario I'm talking about. Let me show you what I'm trying to say. Okay, I want to change the colors on the arm. So I'm going to grab the arm, but actually first I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to just grab these two colors out of the palette for that layer. Control C. Now I'm going to go to this palette, that's this arm, and paste in these two colors. Now I think I should now be able to go in here, grab this color, and make it match. I can't make it match. The eyedropper does not work over here. So I'm going to take a crazy stab here and say, what if I delete these two colors? I'm just going to see what happens. Okay. And now I'm going to change. I wonder if I can change the name. I'm just wondering if I change the name to 3 and 2 instead of 4 and 5, I wonder if the colors will update. So that's the sort of thing I have to sort of experiment with opentoonz, because I think it's kind of smart that way. I just, right now, right in front of you, I've run into a roadblock. And again, this is what happens all the time, but this is not really a software bug. This is just me needing to get to know the software. But the point I wanted to make today is that for being able to map in your animation. There's even a 3D camera concept, so you can zoom in and out or pan across your background, that sort of thing. And the final result looks fine. So I think that probably for the next couple of weeks I'm going to be fiddling with Toonz. Let's see what Toonz can do. Let's see what its limits are. If I run into too many bugs and roadblocks, frankly, in all likelihood, I'm probably going to start using TV Paint. And I'll probably spend $1,000 and buy a copy of it. Quite frankly, I have a crack of it, and I will try it before I commit to it. But if I like it and I'm going to use it, I'm going to buy it. And it is what it is. So I've been trying to make it work with this open source software. But this business of spending a bunch of time figuring out all the bugs, figuring out all the workarounds, and then finding out at the end of the day it's just broken and you're never ever going to get the result reliably that you're after, I'm sick of it. I've spent too many months dicking around with this software. So that's where I'm at, and I wanted to kind of give you that report, and maybe over the next few weeks I'll be coming up with some stuff that's opentoonz stuff, but we'll see. But for the moment, I'm gonna take a break from Blender and Krita. Now, Blender and Krita, if you're just dealing with a single layer, frankly, the simple way of working with Blender and Krita, where you kind of block things in and maybe ink them in Blender, do the shadows and the color in Krita, and then bring that into opentoonz for layering and compositing, might not be too bad of an idea. Of course, you could composite in Blender as well, but frankly, the playback and the caching and stuff, so it's all real time in opentoonz, is better. And the schematic view in opentoonz, as far as adding effects or adding a layer that where maybe you draw in a black line to create a shadow, and then opentoonz figures out how to composite it so it's only, you know, inside the layer that you're trying to add the shadow to. You can do all that in opentoonz. I've done it before. I've been away from Toonz for a while, so I don't remember how to do it offhand. But the capabilities are all there. But there will be bugs, and you know, we'll see. So anyway, I just wanted to do this video to give you an update, because for some people, if you're into Blender Grease Pencil and you're getting excited about Krita, you may find this information disappointing. But I cannot deal with software that has these really rich capabilities, like being able to add these layers to translate or filter it. Really cool capabilities, but they don't actually work. Once it's go time and you got to create a finished product, maybe for a customer, it's gonna fail on you. I can't deal with it. I'm sick of that. I've bumped into it so many times that it's just maddening. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today, and now I'm going to go enjoy my martini and hang out with my bird, and see you next time. Probably it'll be a couple days.